I was in New York City, autographing the first book that I had written. And while sitting there autographing books, a black woman came up. The only question I heard from her was, "Are you Martin Luther King?" And I was looking down writing and I said, "Yes." The next minute, I felt something beating on my chest. Before I knew it, I had been stabbed by this demented woman. I was rushed to Harlem Hospital. It was a dark Saturday afternoon, and the blade had gone through, and the x-rays revealed that the tip of the blade was on the edge of my aorta, the main artery, and once that's punctured, you're drowning your own blood, and that's the end of it. Came out in the New York Times the next morning that if I'd merely sneezed, I would have died. Well, about 4 days later, after my chest had been opened and the blade had been taken out, they allowed me to move around the hospital in a wheelchair and to read some of the mail that had come in and kind letters from all over the states and the world. I read a few, but one of them I'll never forget. I received one from the president and the vice president, but I've forgotten what those telegrams said. I received a visit and a letter from the governor of New York, but I've forgotten what that letter said. But there was another letter that came from a little girl who was a student at the White Plains High School. And I looked at that letter and I'll never forget it. It read simply, "Dear Dr. King, I am a 9th grade student at the White Plains High School. And while it should not matter, I would like to mention that I'm a white girl. I read in the paper of your misfortune and of your suffering. And I read that if you had merely sneezed, you would have died. I am simply writing you to say that I am so happy that you didn't sneeze. And I too want to say that I'm happy that I didn't sneeze, because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1960 when students all over the South started sitting in their lunch counters. And I knew that as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream and taking the whole nation back to those great wells of democracy which were dug deep by the founding fathers in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1961 when we decided to take a ride for freedom and ended segregation and interstate travel. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1962 when Negroes in Albany, Georgia decided to straighten their backs up. And whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they're going somewhere, because a man can't ride your back unless it is big. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1963 when the black people of Birmingham, Alabama aroused the conscience of this nation and brought into being the Civil Rights Bill. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have had a chance later that year in August to try and tell America about a dream that I'd had. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been in Selma to see the great movement there. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been in Memphis to see a community rally around those brothers and sisters who were suffering. And they were telling me, you know, it really doesn't matter what happens now. I left Atlanta this morning, and as we got started on the plane, there were 6 of us. Pilot said over the public address system, "We're sorry for the delay, but we have Dr. Martin Luther King on the plane. And to be sure that nothing would go wrong on the plane, we've had to check out everything carefully. And we've had all the baggage checked, and we've had the plane protected and guarded all night." And then I got into Memphis, and some began to talk about the threats that were out, or about what would happen to me from some of our sick white brothers. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned with that right now. I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. That's why I'm not worried tonight. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. That's the end of the mountaintop speech.